Hi, I'm Steve with SecureTech, and today we will be installing a backup camera on a 2023 T770 Bobcat. Let's get started. Now, when it comes to installing a backup camera on a piece of equipment, you may want to ask yourself, why would I do that? I've been backing up equipment all my life without a backup camera. Well, as someone who has a commercial driver's license, I've been backing up vehicles, trucks, large pieces of equipment for many years without a backup camera. But now that I have one on my personal vehicle, I can't imagine living without it. It makes it safer, and so that's wiser, and it makes it more efficient. I don't have to get out as much as I might would if I have a backup camera. So that's a good why you should install a backup camera. Another why I'd like you to consider today is why do it the way that we are going to do it? Well, I'm glad you asked why. When it comes to installing a backup camera on your piece of equipment, we're reminded it's a big investment and you don't want just anybody cutting into your wiring harness. So the best thing to do is what we're doing is we've got all Bobcat equipment. It's a wiring harness that you get from Bobcat. The camera comes from Bobcat, and even the bracket we're going to be using comes from Bobcat. So with that, we have a little bit more confidence that we're not just taking any DIY kit and installing it on a very expensive piece of equipment.
Now, Bobcat tells us that behind the driver's seat to the right is a storage compartment. As you can see it right here. Just reach in there. That piece of plastic will pull right out. And inside that compartment is our access to power on. That is part of the stock harness from Bobcat. We pull this little cap off right here, and we put that cap on our harness and the same type of connection that we pulled it off of. Then that will leave us with the appropriate cable from our harness to plug in. That hole right there is where actually we will run the cable that goes to our camera in the back. We'll show you that more later, but we'll plug in right here, and then we'll run our harness through here underneath all of this trim, and we'll be bringing it out up here where we will mount our display. Now we'll have to take a Phillips screwdriver and take out some screws. Here's another Phillips. We also will have to take these tabs. You can pop them out with a piece of plastic or a screwdriver. And then you'll have some Allen screws right here and here. And then a couple more Phillips screws that will be holding this piece in place where we will mount our display. Now that we've got these loose, you can see that you will pull them out. You don't have to disconnect the display or anything. You'll be able to see that there's going to be a channel back there behind all of this where we can run our cable to our display. Now we found that it was actually easier to fish the cable, the harness that we got from Bobcat, under the plastic here. If we took out, again, these little pop outs, you can use a piece of plastic or a screwdriver to pop out. There'll be 5 of these that you can pop out, and then just gently holding it over, you can slide the harness underneath. We also decided to remove the radio. It was easy. Just take a screwdriver and flathead and pop out at 3 places, and you would be able to access to be able to slide that harness up in behind that trim.
So we have our wiring harness that has the connector for our display monitor that we'll be mounting right here. It's neatly concealed behind all this trim. But before we install our monitor, let's go ahead and run the cable to the back and hook up our camera. So now, if you see from our storage compartment, there is a hole back there. We didn't drill that hole. That hole was made for us, and we're going to be taking the connector that goes to the camera. That's the longest part of this harness, running it back through that hole, and we'll hook up our camera. So now that we have it coming through the back or where that storage compartment is, ran it along these other wires, got it up and out of the way. We're going to cut these zip ties off running it all the way around. We'll come out on this side, running along these wires right here, and we have it already ran all the way to the back. We're just going to take the slack out of it, get it nice and tied up. This is where we're coming out. We'll put it along all these wires right here. And this plugs right into our camera, which we will mount right here. So we've taken our camera, and it just has a couple of bolts that come through pre-drilled holes that come in the bracket that came from Bobcat. And this is the BCT Bobcat part number 7286502 backup camera from Bobcat. It bolts right into this bracket, and this bracket is going to be bolted right here on the back. So Bobcat tells us to drill 2 5/16 holes. That's where these bolts are going to go through, and a 13/16 hole. As you can see, the camera comes with the grommet right there. That'll be able to create a seal. So 2 5/16 holes for the bracket, and then your 13/16 hole for your grommet to go through. Now, what I've done is I've actually got the camera and monitor hooked up earlier, and I kind of played around with where exactly the location might be, so you might want to do that. But it really didn't seem a whole lot of difference whether I moved in a little bit or a little bit out. I did want to be able to catch just a little bit because it's what's called fish-eyed. It's not a traditional rectangular view. I wanted to be able to see some sort of edge of the Bobcat. So sliding it back just a hair will take care of that. Center it up, mark for your 5/16 holes here and here, and for your 13/16 hole in the center. Make sure that you set your 13/16 hole either back or off a little bit so that you have room to come in under your camera. Once you get that drilled down in there, get your grommet smooth, kind of pull. Again, I set this off to the side because there's really not enough room underneath. We'll pull this down and line up our bolt holes and bolt it down. So we've mounted our camera in the back. Now it's time for us to mount our monitor. Our display is part 7330176. It comes from Bobcat. It is a VOM 43 HD Voyager monitor. And here is where we're going to make our only deviation from the Bobcat kit. We are going to upgrade this system to a larger monitor, a 7-inch monitor, which is VOM 718. So now that we have the monitor mounted, because we have used the proprietary Bobcat cable, now we have, when we turn the equipment on, the backup camera comes on automatically. So there's no need for us to turn it on or even utilize the 12-volt port right here. It's still free for anything else you need. All the wires are hidden, and we're ready to go.